you can't complain about there being no money in the sport or wanting support for these athletes and all this stuff. And then at the same time be like, yeah, but nobody else should climb and nobody should be famous and there should be no sponsorship. Like, well, where do you think all this stuff comes from?
Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing. How to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show.
Good Temps crew, back together. You guys, good to see you. First of all, good to see you. I'm going to shout out everyone's name again. I'm not going to do a full intro, but I want to say your guys' names again because many new listeners each time. And I want to make sure everyone knows the name behind that sweet, sweet voice that has tons of wisdom. And we've got Carlo Traversi, Will Anglin, Austin Hoyt, and boys, just good to see you all. How's the summer been going? Actually, I noticed that the background, Will, your background is different. Austin, your background is different. Carlo, you're still in your trailer park home. And
yep.
And yeah,
in the driveway.
In the driveway. Sure. Will, you look like you're in a van. You live in the dream. Where are you coming from?
I just got a van, by the way. Loving it. Understand the hype now. It's actually kind of sick. You can go climbing all sorts of places.
Van life influencer. Your arc is incoming.
Consider yourselves influenced. I like to feel like I've earned it. I've crawled in and out of the back of my truck and an Element and a Camry and a Saturn for enough years. My back needed this. We're getting ancient. I'm in Squamish. For the first time, it's just kind of shattered my universe in the best possible way. And I will be here every summer until I climb everything. So it's going to be a while.
I just want you to hold right there and I just want to say congrats, Will. I'm psyched for you.
Thanks.
I've
arrived.
I'm stoked for you, man.
I feel like I'm like a part. I'm in the club now. I get to go.
I get it now.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you, dude. I think it's rad that you're got the van, living it up, getting after some climbing areas.
Carlo, I couldn't tell if you were congratulating him on being in Squamish or having a van. Like it's
all of it. Because the van allows you to be in Squamish and not spend a ridiculous amount of money and, and enjoy it. And I mean, I guess I've experienced some Squamish van life in the past too. And it's a wonderful thing. So congrats, I'm psyched for you.
I stayed in the back of my Prius with my now wife for 2 weeks in Squamish, and I wish we had a van because it was hot and small. And yeah, dude, you did it. Austin, where you come from? That background's a little different.
Yeah, I'm living the dream life as well. I'm living the dream setter life. I'm on my setting grind right now. I've been traveling a lot setting, but I'm in the new the youth training facility at the GP81 just built in New York City, and I'm actually in the hold room in the corner, sitting on a crash pad with 2 crates as my table. So that's if you can picture that, that's my setup right now.
Anything you want to say about GP81 and just, I don't know, that's kind of like an institution from the East. I've been there before, met some of those guys and loved it, but then they've moved and now they have like a youth facility. I don't know, just kind of curious why they opened that up. I mean, good for them, but.
Yeah. I mean, youth is that's what the movement is right now. I think people are realizing that it's you got to invest in the future. And I think that's kind of what they're doing here. I helped with the opening set, and we set a bunch of hard comp style boulders and a few rock climbing boulders as well. And they got a new team, and I don't know, it seems like they're doing everything right over here. It's cool people and a cool place, and I'm excited to hopefully help out more in the future, but at least see where it goes. So yeah, keep an eye out for the GP81 crew.
Ooh, that's rad. I've not been there. I don't know that I've ever actually even met those folks in person. I feel like I've communicated with them in some form over the years, but I want to second that shout out. I think they're doing a lot of things right, it seems like, and it's really cool to see people in the gym industry who are like really invested in the sport, love it themselves, are active participants, and are like really doing the work to like make sure that, you know, these gyms are sick and the next generation of climbers has cool places to go and those good vibes are like still alive. I love it.
Yeah, I don't really know those guys, but they have a sterling reputation in the climbing world, at least from everyone I know who's come through New York City or, you know, been members of the gym and stuff. And to be around a community for that long and still just have that many people talk great about you, it means you're doing something right. So I love to hear that out of the gym space for sure. I think it's amazing.
So Carlo, you're in your trailer park home, but you just got back.
Yeah, you guys don't even know where I am. I could be anywhere.
He could be anywhere at any time.
I'm still in my driveway.
He's actually driving right now.
By the way, that is the dream. As soon as they have those self-driving things, I'm getting 2 vans. I don't know why, but I just need 1 van.
Self-driving van, yeah.
Could you imagine just going to sleep and then waking up? You're like, I feel like sport climbing at the Red tomorrow. And you just like go to sleep and you just show up there. Maybe I'd have 2 because I would send it over and pick you up, Austin. I'd be like,
oh yeah, I love that idea. I love that.
In the Red.
As long as you don't go to sleep and then like wake up in a ditch somewhere, then sick.
Might not wake up from that one. But Carlo, you're back home. Where were you this past month?
Yeah. I just got back it's actually been about a week now since I got back. I was in Norway for the last 2 weeks of August climbing at the Profile Wall, which is in southwestern Norway. It's like not actually that close to Oslo. It's close to a city called Stavanger, which is like right on the west coast, the southwest coast. And then you drive like about an hour and a half down the coast and it's unbelievably gorgeous. But there's this like 350 foot overhanging granite wall that's just splitter cracks. And so they call it kind of like the crack climbing version of Flatanger, essentially, because it's just like amazing splitter cracks and huge wall. And so I went over there for a BD trip with Babsy, Jacopo, Connor Herson, Sean Rabitou was there. And then a couple people from BD marketing were there as well. And then we had a videographer there, a photographer, stuff like that. So it was supposed to be kind of a smaller trip. And then it kind of just escalated into being like a bigger kind of small team trip essentially for BD. And it's a place I've been wanting to go for many years because there's a little bit of mystery around the Profile Wall. There's like a little bit of media here and there, but there's not like a ton of like information about those. And it hosts 2 of the hardest trad routes in the world, which are Crown Royale and the Recovery Drink. Crown Royale was put up a couple years ago by Pete Whitaker. And then Recovery Drink was put up almost, I think more than 10 years ago now by Nico Favrese. And 14C, 14D, 8C plus 9A for both of them. They're huge routes. And, you know, initially I was like, I want to go check out the Recovery Drink because it's been kind of back in my mind for so many years of being like, what is this thing? And then once I learned more about Crown Royale, that was also something that I wanted to check out. They're right next to each other. And yeah, it didn't disappoint, even though like my personal climbing kind of did. I mean, I kind of knew going into it, like I'm not the best crack climber. Like I've climbed some of the hardest cracks in the world in Yosemite with Magic Line and Meltdown, but these are a little bit more full-on crack skills required. And I knew it was kind of going to be like a bit of a growth opportunity for me in terms of like really learning how to properly crack climb and on really, really hard cracks and overhung demanding cracks, which I don't know if you guys have crack climbed much, but crack climbing when it's steep and overhung is like a whole different deal, I find, than crack climbing when it's like vert or slightly slabby, which is honestly, you just don't get that much like really long overhanging crack. So it's a super unique experience.
Can I just get a little behind the scenes on how these trips come to be? Like you just talked about freaking like that is an all-star crew to go to a crack climbing place. And I mean, I'm just wondering, like, are you just sitting there? It's like Tuesday morning and you just get like an email that's like, hey, would you like to go to Norway to climb on, you know, would you say like the trad climbing a Flatanger in Norway with this amazing crew? You just go like, yes, period. Like,
yeah, it's a good question. This one kind of came together in a weird way. So like Connor and I had actually planned this trip like 2 years ago, and we almost made it happen in September of like 2023 or something. and it just didn't quite work out with like his school schedule, my work schedule. The timing just didn't quite plan out for us to have as enough time as we wanted. And so we had been trying to go over for a while. And then this spring we talked to Babsy and Jacopo, and they were both like, we're going, like, we're going to go in August, like just on our own. And then Connor was like, oh, well, I was planning on being in Flatanger and I'll just come down and meet you guys there. And then I heard through the athlete manager at BD that those guys had kind of been like, oh, they're all going to be there. And I was like, well, fuck, I want to go. Like, I've been trying to go for years. And so they were like, well, you can come. Like, let's kind of get it all together. And then the Sean thing is kind of hilarious. Sean just like randomly showed up in Flatanger, or not randomly. I think he might've had plans to go to Flatanger. He was climbing with Connor there. And then when he heard about everyone coming down to the profile wall, he was just like, well, I want to come. And like, he just got on the flight with Connor and came down. And honestly, I didn't even know Sean was going to be there until I was like on the plane headed there. And they were just like, oh yeah, Sean's here too. Like,
all right.
Yeah.
So it is exactly
we had
what
kind
I
of it was kind of like a random mix of stuff where we were just kind of like, all right, we're all going to go and it's going to be sick and it's going to be fun. And luckily, like, everyone there is like awesome to hang out with. Like, nobody has any sort of weird ego trips about stuff. No one's like has a weird energy in their projecting process. It's all very like chill and everyone's super cool. And like, I've climbed with all of those guys like quite a bit in the past. So I knew it was going to be really chill. And yeah, it was just a great trip. Like, everyone was positive. Everything was good. And I mean, I can't really give away any like news related stuff, but like Connor's a monster.
Don't tease us.
Yeah, Connor's an absolute monster, especially at that style. Like, he is the best crack climber ever, like ever.
Damn.
It doesn't even come close in any capacity. And I've seen a lot of this over the years, but especially this trip, I was just like, nobody can come close. Like, not even remotely. He's like in a league of his own in that way. So it's super cool to watch his progression over the years and development and stuff. And then, you know, it was fun climbing with Sean, who basically every day he would tie in and be like, why am I doing this? He's like, I'm basically just kind of like terrified and feel like I suck at this. And what am I doing? And then he would just go and like get after it. And like, so it's kind of this weird combination of like, you know, some of the strongest climbers in the world across the board. And it's like the full spectrum of like kind of like emotional getting after it in different ways, you know, and like, I'm somewhere kind of in between. So it's kind of fun to play with that. So,
well, those pictures you shared with the crew looks amazing. I wish you could tell us more, but I guess that's part of the reason they do these big trips, is to have that big media drop. But I got to see Sean compete at a Deepwater Soloing competition in San Francisco this past weekend, which is completely different from what you're doing. Couldn't be more different. He seemed to have no fear or any problems with just running up these things. So it was really cool. They had a classic, I say classic, I guess this is still new, but it was in San Francisco, right by the ballpark, 50-foot tall wall with two routes, identical routes next to each other. I want to say I heard it was something like 513. So a little mix. I mean, that's hard, but for guys like Sean Rapitu, 513 is a speed route. And it was fucking awesome. I was blown away. Yeah, I've been climbing for a long time. I was in San Francisco for 12 years, watched climbing kind of go from a random sport that guys like me did to being popular. And I think this must have been like $1 million production. You know, we walked out by the ballpark, huge crowds, beautiful wall out in the Pacific Ocean in the bay, music, DJs. It was for real. And I just was blown away by this idea that normies, could watch and enjoy it. And I was walking past some lady and she was commenting to her friend and said something like, oh, so when they fall, they just fall into the water. And I know that sounds like dumb, but it was interesting, this like very clear understanding of climbing, and that was appealing. But it brought an interesting comment or question from my buddy Scott Rojan, and he was listening to a previous episode we did. And Will, he really liked your comment about how we shouldn't dumb down climbing. It's not fair. It's not fun. It's not needed. But then as we were sitting there watching this Deepwater Solo comp, which was, well, physics, hey, if they fall, like the one who falls didn't get to the top and loses. And he made a comment to me just about how it was interesting how much he liked that little segment you did, but how this had to appeal to us as experienced climbers as well. I don't know. What do you think about that juxtaposition there?
Well, I think that just is deep water soloing. I mean, in a sense, you could say it's dumbing down a discipline in that, like, it's kind of a race, and that's not really what we do. But as far as like that discipline, like that is actually just how it works. There are disciplines that are just easier to understand at face value. And I think DWS is one of those where like it's kind of inherently compelling watching people fall through the air, like into water, and like, you know, somebody can win, like, oh, well, they got to the top first, so they won, right? And you're like, yeah, they did. Sick. Like that's all like super easy to understand. I mean, I think it's rad. I got nothing negative to say about it. I think it's sick.
Will's totally on it there. Deep water solo is just, it's not dumbed down. It's not dumbing down climbing in any way. It's just a much more digestible format and kind of like climbing discipline to watch. And it's just inherently easier to kind of view in that way. And it's cool to watch. It's cool to compete in. I've done, you know, like over a dozen of those events over the years. And they're as a competitor, they're like probably the most fun you can have, like in a climbing competition. They're like, as long as you're okay with like heights and, you know, falling a long way and possibly messing yourself up a little bit, they're like just insane to do. So like I would have gone if I had the ability to, for sure. But
it makes sense that that's what like the big companies want to do for the spectating and like the competitions. Like you guys said, it just totally makes sense, I think. And I've done one and they're so scary.
They're so scary. Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like, I don't think like DWS shouldn't be like the preeminent comp format.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's cool in that, like we're talking about, like it is outside looking in. It makes sense to people. It's compelling. It's entertaining to watch, and it is still climbing. Like it's not dumbing down what it is. It's just that discipline. I don't think we've arrived at like the competition format for non-DWS climbing. I actually think sport climbing is the closest. I think bouldering has a ways to go. But the nice thing about like the World Cup sport climbing stuff is it is easy to understand. Like whoever gets the highest wins. Like I think that's just an easy thing for people to compute and understand. And like what's crazy to me is like it almost seems already perfect for broadcast, because you have like the opening part of the route where not a lot's happening. You could cut to like you could have commentary, like people can be talking and you're not missing anything. And then you can really shut up and like watch this top section where people are getting separated. And the way that works, I think has a lot going for it. I think I think we need to like work on bouldering a little bit, but the DWS is like a sick comp format. It's cool. It feels very festival-esque, like it, and it fits well into those kind of contexts. But yeah, I don't think it's like the ultimate discipline.
I liked how in the Olympics on the lead climbing route, they had different colors for each section. And I think it just helped the commentators kind of talk about it and connect their audio with the visual. So I really like that. And yeah, I just realized, because we were talking about Sean, that I was at the comp. I have some insight into how that finals went that I know won't be public. And so I got to share with you guys the finals, because they do it bracketed, right? So the first place seed and the fourth place seed into finals compete, and the second place seed and the third place seed compete. And then whoever wins each of those brackets goes to a finals competition, then kind of a consolation one. So it was first up, it was Ross Fulkerson, my boy, and Xander Waller compete. And Xander's just been crushing these. He's been winning every single one.
He's so good at it.
Ross and Xander had just an incredible run. Ross beat him by a fraction, like just committed to almost like a campus on the last hole, just barely made it. So that was a big upset. And then Sean Rabitou and Nathaniel Coleman were the other bracket, just superstars. I heard Nathaniel had been training for speed a bunch. He was into it. Sean is always great at these things and, you know, kind of was crushing. Nathaniel may have false started. Like it wasn't totally clear. It's hard to say, but he was out in front and then Sean fell off, but perhaps Sean fell off because he was trying to go faster. You know, like it wasn't really clear what happened there, but we all sat in the crowd, had no idea what's going on. You know, we don't know anything. And then they kind of wait for a while. And then it turns out that they gave the win of that bracket to Nathaniel Coleman. So that was kind of like a big deal there, kind of a big upset. And then in finals, Ross and Nathaniel were the finals round. And it was a good race. I would say that Ross got a really good start because I think Nathaniel was kind of holding back a little bit. And Ross won, and he won because he's amazing. But, you know, that 10th of a second difference made for an exciting final. Ooh. So
I did see a possible false start video there. I'm not calling anybody out, but I definitely saw some false start video for sure. But I do think they need to come up with a better way of dealing with that. It hadn't been a problem in the past, like in all the competitions that I've done with deep water solo, and like the Seco block comps, we never had any issues where it really felt like there was like a significant false start at any time, which is surprising. But I do think as the speed has really ramped up, you know, it's become more important. That being said, the one thing that I've pushed the organizers of those events over the years, and I'll kind of not go to events if they don't follow through on it, is the route has to be hard. And I think that there's been some events where they like literally had like a 511 and it's like a speed comp essentially. And it's like, I would rather the route be 14A, 14B than be too easy essentially. And, you know, even the first year we did the Seco comp in Salt Lake City, the route was probably 14B. And it was amazing. Like to be able to climb that hard on it and also fast, like Danny Andrada set the route and he just did a good job of setting like a really hard route, but it was easier to climb fast than it was slow. And so it kind of like already just made the tempo feel faster because of that, you know, like if you climbed it with speed, it was actually easier to do the moves. So I think that the setting is super important with those things. And I think that it will stay true to climbing as long as the routes stay hard. And I also think that those false starts will matter less if the route is hard. And it's because you will have to slow down and be precise. And I just think the harder routes as well do a good job of like showing some of the precision and like skill, like kind of execution in climbing, as opposed to just like basically just pure campus power and like timing on jugs essentially. So.
What was yours like, Austin, when you competed? How hard was it?
It was, I think it was like high end 13, like 13D or something. So it wasn't easy, but it was hard enough for me to be like, it's not like monkey barring on a jug. But it was funny, you brought up like the hardest setting. And I feel like every climber ever that competes is always in the same boat. Like they're always like, oh, we want a hard round. We always want a hard round. We don't want an easy round. And every setter agrees. Yeah. But then somehow something switches up somewhere and then an easy round happens. And it's like, it's always the same thing. It's weird because the setters agree with the climbers, but then there's just like a weird middle gray area. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird that it always happens.
So this event, I do know, like one of our setters from the boulder field, our head setter Devin, was one of the setters for this event in San Francisco, and he said that they tried to set harder, but they didn't have time to do a changeover between male and female. And so they ended up kind of making sure the route was a little bit more towards the middle. And I joked and I was like, well, isn't the strongest sport climber there Brooke? Like, yeah, it's like she's right. She's climbed harder sport routes, I think, than basically everybody. So, but like his point was like, yeah, but we don't want only Brooke to be able to climb the route for the girls, you know,
That's
and then
fair.
Have like, I think there's just a larger discrepancy between the strongest girls and then some of the weaker girls that are not weak, but just, you know, it's a bigger discrepancy in the range there. Whereas the guys, I feel like pretty much everybody could accomplish something at like a decently high level, probably not as high as Brooke's level, but I think that's where it comes down to. And then the organizers as well, I think they want to see people top the routes, but I would argue that it's almost better to see people falling like high on the route than it is necessarily topping, especially when you there's a lot of the walls that don't allow you to actually top out. And so, or they don't even want you to really top out. And
that's how the one I did was.
With that in mind.
I think the argument they might make is like, oh, you know, we set this double dyno and you get these like crazy falls. But I know from climbing, my hardest stuff in Mallorca is it's scary and it's hard to actually climb hard and to commit to body positions. You know, it's much different to like overpower a 511 and just lock things off and be really controlled. But when you got to put a heel up, you got to commit. I think it actually would be more exciting from a spectator point of view. So yeah, I like that. We'll put it out into the world. Harder routes, please. Everyone can take it.
But keep the comps. Love the Deepwater solo comps.
Love it. You guys, the last thing I wanted to point out there, because it blew my mind, was how freaking popular these athletes are. They are so popular. It was a little awkward to watch. I'd never seen anything like this where people just got mobbed. Any of those names we just brought up of the people winning and doing amazing, and they are amazing. They're amazing athletes. They should be put on a pedestal. But I was horrified. I shouldn't say horrified. I was stunned by the amount of people that were just yelling at them to sign their chalk bag, to get a picture with them. And in one way, I thought it was cool. Like, I was like, wow, these people are superstars now. They're rock stars. But another side of me was just, it was a little weird. It's not something I'd seen in climbing. And I don't know if it was the normies. It was just the climbers, the up and coming climbers loved them. It was
Josh,
wild.
it's because you live in Reno, dude.
Yeah. Imagine under Grandpa Peabody, everyone's like, hey, can you sign my chalk? Oh, can you? Like, that would be so funny.
That's coming, dude.
Dude, yeah, I think it is. I mean, the crusty trad dad in me is like, get out of here with all that stuff. Like, that's a mess. But at the same time, like,
It's good for the sport.
I was having a conversation with somebody out here, actually, where like, you can't complain about there being no money in the sport or wanting support for these athletes and all this stuff. And then at the same time be like, yeah, but nobody else should climb and nobody should be famous and there should be no sponsorship. Like, well, where do you think all this stuff comes from? There's kind of a bad version of all of that happening and a better version of all of that happening. And I hope we trend towards the better version of that. But like, it's inevitable and for the health of kind of the sport and the industry. And honestly, like I think for the better of the athletes, like the people who actually are pushing this sport forward and, deserve to be professional athletes in every way that any other sport has professional athletes. Like I'd love to see that for those people. And, there are some things that are probably necessary in order to facilitate that. And so I love to see like famous climbing athletes and they're athletes, like, and they're cutting edge, like they deserve it.
Whether you've seen it or not, like it's been happening for years. Like it has been increasing in that way for years. I mean, when I started climbing, it was pretty infrequent in that regard, but I watched it happen and increase over the years for sure. And I mean, even in Norway, like we got stopped by people like in the streets, in Norway. And people being like, recognize you as climbers and stuff like that. And obviously traveling with a bigger group of pro climbers helps because it's like someone's going to recognize somebody. But like, I don't know. I mean, just random people know quite a bit about climbing nowadays, and it's definitely cool to see. So I'm all for it. And I haven't seen like a negative side of it at this point, in my opinion. Like I think it's all positive. It hasn't come to the point where it's like it feels like it's like changing the sport for the worse in any way. So it's different. Yeah.
When did you start practicing your signature so that you could make it look really cool?
Man, I don't think I ever practiced anything. I don't think you ever like sit down and are like, I got to practice this. It's like, it's more like
you
start getting asked for signatures and you're just like, all right, I'll scribble some shit on your chalk bag. I hope it looks okay, and then eventually like it turns into something that's like repeatable and
Carlo, exactly. I don't know if you'll remember this. I got to tell this anecdote. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. Do you remember the very first time we met, Carlo? I know you don't, but do you remember?
I feel like I do, but I feel like it was on the East Coast or something like that. Was it?
Oh, okay. That was actually the first time you beat me.
I think we met.
So it was at that Earth Trek thing. I met you, and that's actually when I met Austin Guyman too, and Tone Day and Chris Anderson. That was actually a very pivotal point in my life. But when I first moved out to Colorado, there was a comp at the spot. You were there, and I was like, I mean, you're Carlo. I'll fanboy here a little bit, but I was like, oh my God, like, I want to like actually like meet this dude. Like I live out here now. He's like the man. And you're standing like with a handful of people, and I wanted to like, be like a part of the circle, like hanging out. But it was like after comp, and this person next to me was like so drunk. And I like was going to be like, hey, Carlo. And this person just turns and threw up all over me. And I just turned around, I left, I like cleaned up. I was like,
Yeah, of course.
it was like the most 180. I was like, oh, I'm about to like say hey to Carlo, like in Boulder, like at a
Oh my
spot
God,
comp.
dude.
Like, this is so sick. And then the next moment I'm just like covered in vomit
Oh my
and
God,
just like, was like, never mind. And went.
That's so terrible, dude. That's awful.
It was such a bummer, but yeah, I was fanboying. Like I think it's
That's
cool.
funny.
Like I don't know. I feel like people have maybe a inaccurate opinion of like me or like where I've been in the industry or whatever. Like I'm still a Carlo fan. I'm an Austin Hoyt fan. Like I'm a fanboy. I
appreciate that. Will.
it's hilarious.
That's a crazy story, dude.
I'm a Will
that's
Anglin
so
fan.
unfortunate, man. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're all Will Anglin fans here, you know.
Big fan.
I mean, we all started somewhere, you know, like we all started like in the back of some danky like climbing gym, you know, just trying to climb our first V3, you know, like we all started the same way, whether you're Yanya or Chris Sharma or, you know, some of the biggest names in climbing. It's like you all have your heroes and your inspirations growing up, and where you end up doesn't necessarily take away from any of that. So, you know, anyone that's been in the climbing industry for a long time and has provided value to the sport and, you know, continued to kind of put more in than they take out essentially is always like a hero in the sport in my book. So yeah, all of you guys are in that department.
Well, you know what's kind of weird to see though? I totally agree. I'm excited to see climbing be popular, and none of the athletes were complaining or doing anything negative. They were smiling. They looked happy to kind of do their job as a professional and famous athlete. And so I don't want to make it seem like this is from me. What I saw the crowd doing was it's a bit of like objectifying a little bit that, you know, like one of the things about climbing and being in the industry a long time is that, you know, like I probably got to know you, Carlo, because it's like, oh, and now I'm in South Africa and you know my buddy. And so you just start seeing people. Maybe you're climbing on the same freaking boulder as them, next to them, or whatever the case may be. You kind of can't help but get to know them as people. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, a 10-year-old girl wanting to get a picture with Brooke Rabbitoux, her idol, someone she's looking up to. I don't see anything wrong with that. It was just strange to see it become like that, where people came up to me and said, and thank you to all those people who came up and were like, love the pod, Josh, you know, thanks for doing that. And that felt, well, no one wanted a picture with me, but I'm not surprised. No clout or handsomeness there to write your Instagram, but it felt very different from like, I got to get that picture with that you know, I want to capture that. Like, and not saying there's anything wrong with it. It was just something new for me to witness, you know?
It's because you live in Reno, dude.
Stop saying that. People are going to fanboy and come visit me in Reno. They're going to be like, Josh is in Reno.
No, I'm just saying it's good to recognize, you know, that you're probably in a little bit of a bubble in some ways, you know, and like you
a
definitely
non-bubble.
like
Yeah.
I noticed it too, even like now that I've been out of like the Denver area or out of a certain like the Bay or whatever, and then I go back after a few years away and I go to the gym or something, and it's like a whole different whole thing, you know, it's like bigger, there's more people, you don't recognize anybody. It's like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes snapping out of the bubble a little bit, you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. You know, like this is a little different than I remember everything being, you know? And I think it's just good to recognize that the world obviously is growing and changing outside of your sphere on a constant basis. And it's one of the beauties of traveling and seeing a lot of different things is that you stay a little bit in touch with that greater perspective and whatnot about how it is. And I think it's true even so, like in climbing areas, like outside, and seeing how climbing areas have changed. Like my first trips to Font were like back, you know, I think it was 2012. And, you know, now going there in March of 2025, like even seeing that 13-year increase in the amount of people that are out there, families, people doing trips and stuff is crazy. My first trips to Magic Wood in 2010, we were like alone in the forest most days, you know, and now it's like mobbed with people, you know, it's like a lot of people, and like, it's changing, you know, it's growing, it's changing, and you only see areas and communities and gyms and how it all works for like what you remember it being and not for actually what it is. And you kind of have to go reconnect in order to like retune the perspective a little bit. And I think it's helpful to stay in touch with it because, you know, especially if you're in a position where you can like alter the course of how things, you know, work in the climbing world or alter the industry in even a small way, it's important to know where things are at.
Well, then let's do it. pick up your trash, brush the holds, wipe your feet off before you pull on, pick up someone else's trash.
And we're back to ethics.
Always.
Those are all good ethics. I love the ethic talks, so we should definitely keep pepper those in for sure. So I want the Good Temps listeners to be the most ethical crew in all of climbing. So that would be the goal.
A patron did say, like, you guys should answer some ethics question each time. And I still don't like the idea of being like police and like calling out people, but
I kind of love that idea.
If we made it funny, which I think we could very easily make it funny, like, I think I would be totally down. People just got to be down to get ribbed a little bit. You got to be able to make fun of yourself. If people are down and can handle that, then hell yeah, I'd love to banter on that. It'd be hilarious.
Well, I feel like I'm always the butt end of the jokes here on whether I send or did not send my ethics. And so we'll see, like, if you tear tape off of your finger and then you don't realize that part of it fell in the dirt, like, did you...
The result of all of this is Josh's tick list just keeps getting smaller and smaller every time. Every time we have an ethical discussion, Josh loses a couple.
It's like, Josh has been climbing for 30 years.
Yeah.
Or has he?
Have I really been climbing for 30 years? Yeah.
He's never climbed a boulder problem.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Enough of making fun of Josh. All right, let's move on. Austin, did you want to say anything about being extremely famous and getting recognized everywhere you go on the East Coast?
Oh, no, I was going to say something kind of funny, though. I went to that comp and didn't make finals at it. And like Ben Wheeler was there too. And neither of us made finals, but someone came up to me and asked for like a signature on a chalk bag. And I looked at it and the only two signatures were me and Ben, and neither of us made finals. And I thought that was kind of awesome.
That's awesome, actually.
Dude, yeah. I was on a trip, a Mad Rock trip in Joshua Tree. It wasn't like a trip. We were just out there climbing. And it was me, Joshua Horsley, very famous.
Whoa.
It was
big media.
Shauna Coxey, Olympian, multiple World Cup, just Shauna Coxey. Her husband, Ned Feely, who is also just should be very well known. Always a little dark horse, but very well known. And then Emil Abrahamson. And people came up and were like, "Oh my God, are you Emil?" And he was like, "Yes, I am." And they were like, "Who's this lady and her husband?" It was just funny seeing like, that's the fame, so I don't know. So yeah, I'm practicing my signatures that's what I'm saying. All right, let's move on to big media. We've got big highlights of the month. Another 8C Flash by Jules Marchand. Power of Now.
Direct.
The direct. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Austin, can you set that up? I feel like you know more about that. Tell me what the direct is.
Yeah, so it's Giuliano FA Power of Now, which is like, it starts in like this stem press, and you reach over to this crimp and kind of fall into this other undercling, and then you're set up in this like big dyno to the first crux move. And I guess the direct starts matched on this undercling. Simon Lorenzi FA'd it, and his reasoning was he couldn't actually reach the start of the normal one, right? He wanted to climb the climb, and he decided to start matching this undercling, and you just do one super powerful move into the crimp, and then you do the first big jump, I guess. And I'm not sure move for move breakdown or anything, but those are the main differences, like one powerful move versus like some techie weird tic-tacking.
It's actually kind of a shame that there is a variation like that, in the sense that I always think boulders are cool when they have like multiple styles that they have to exhibit. I don't know. I guess you could say it's also cool when it's just like, this is a pure
kilter board,
one mover. Yeah. But it is kind of cool that you have to do. It makes me think of like Dreamcatcher, where you have to climb that kind of like tricky slab and then do a powerful outro. But good breakdown. Carlo, you didn't try it. You've seen it though, right?
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I was there, 2 years ago? Yeah, for like a week or something, just in between travels. And
did you fondle? Did you grab the grips?
Yeah, I felt some of the start. It's actually really hard to feel up all the grips unless you have like a ton of pads, which actually there was like a ton of pads stashed there when I was there. But I think it was raining the day that I like checked it out, but looked at it because it looks sick. It is a beautiful wall. I mean, everything in Magic Wood is pretty amazing in my opinion. Like they just have like a really cool feel to everything there, and the forest is just amazing. But that one, obviously the direct start hadn't been put up yet, but it did seem like I would probably struggle with the reach at the bottom just because it's like long, kind of stemmed out press moves. And it's not like a ton of features to kind of play with, but like it didn't look too crazy. And then the two rails are much better than they even look in video. Like, and that tends to be the case with Magic Wood is like the holds there are really good. Like even the stuff that looks small is like, it bites better than you think it's going to. It's this weird rock. It's maybe my favorite rock I've ever climbed on, like period. It's incredible. It's like really hard. It's like blue colored almost. And there's like not really much choss. And it's got these scales on it that are all usually in the direction of like increasing like friction on the fingers. So it's like, but not sharp.
That's
and
sick.
so like everything that even looks like it's going to be bad for some reason just grabs you back essentially. And it's in like the perfect way, not in like the, like this hurts or this is fucked up. It's like I could climb on this for days and not get fucked up essentially. So it's cool. Yeah. The wall is amazing there. I just looked at it and just kind of was like, oh, that'd be cool to try if I had like a big crew and stuff. I definitely felt like I would struggle with like the reach on a couple of the moves because it's like really big moves between really big holds generally. But yeah, I mean, the flash is amazing. Obviously it's a very obvious boulder to try and flash, just like big, powerful moves, flat, overhung, just there's not a ton of crazy beta. You just need to like jump, grab, set up, jump, grab, set up, like, so it's an obvious one. I obviously can't really comment on the difficulty, although it seems like it's been climbed by a lot of people that felt like maybe it was not the grade or whatever. I think Magic Wood as a whole, I felt like was definitely on the softer side in general. But that tends to be the case for like a lot of Swiss specifically, but.
Ooh, great. I'm booking my ticket.
Yeah.
now.
Okay, I'm in.
I think, we've talked about grades in terms of softness, but I think that, specifically like with Rocklands, the grades, the way that climbing has been improving over the last few years with boards and stuff like that, where it's like bigger holds, big moves, jump, cut, like all that fits the Magic Wood style, just like it does fit the Rocklands style of climbing. And so you could argue whether it's soft, hard, whatever. I think it's just that the progression in hard climbing tends to favor those types of areas. And Magic Wood's definitely one of those areas where, if you train on that type of stuff, you're going to be successful. There's not a ton of nuance,
Yeah. Early on in the, I guess like the early 20 teens, late 2000s, when Joe's was kind of getting more on the map, everyone said it was soft, like just notoriously like a soft zone. And I never actually felt like that. Like I thought it was bang on or quite hard. And kind of what I would try to explain to people is it's not soft. It's just the style in Joe's is very like analogous to what you'd experience in a gym. There are like handholds and you can see them and they're just right there. And then there's a foot and that's the foot and that's what you use. And so there's less to figure out. There may be some sequencing and sometimes there's like some micro beta, but basically just get on and rip. And all the top outs are like kind of chill. So yeah, if you're really experienced in a style, it's going to feel easier to you. And I've never been like very good at gym climbing. Like I excel a lot more when there's like subtlety involved and it's weird. So the things that people typically think are soft, I oftentimes find hard because it's the simple, like pure power expression that's hard for me. And then the things that people think are sandbagged, I'm like, nah, that's chill. That's soft. And so it's interesting. Like it just depends. Different skill sets, different levels of experience, different areas cater to different skill sets or kind of penalize certain deficiencies more than other areas. And you just kind of got to take all that on the chin and just go with it and kind of learn how an area or a place feels to you. And then, and the other thing I wanted to say about that, something that was really impactful for me was when Rustum did Hypno in the freaking summer after a World Cup, like just completely legendary.
Legend.
But when you watch the video of him doing it, it looks piss easy.
So
it
easy.
looks so chill. And people were like, oh, well, it can't be that hard. And it, like anyone who knows anything knows that boulder is fucked up. And he, wrote this post of like, when you watch a fucking master, it looks easy. Like drop the mic. Like,
I love that he said
Did he
that.
write that? Yeah,
that was essentially the gist of it. And like, that's really like, you can watch this flash of Power of Now or watch Yannick's flash or watch any of this stuff. And this is like what is kind of tough about climbing from a spectator perspective is like people who are really good at climbing and have like this great style or whatever, like they make impossible things look effortless. And that's what good climbing is. When I watch somebody just like claw their way like out of some crazy situation, like it's cool to climb, like they did the boulder problem. Like there is no like taking away from that. Like the accomplishment is the accomplishment, but there's a spectrum to that as well. And like you can watch really, really good climbers even performing at their limit when somebody climbs something so well and masterfully, it doesn't look that hard. And so you really can't just sit on the other side of a screen and look at something and be like, that looks soft, or that looked too easy or whatever. I mean, the more climbing experience you have, the more you can actually have like some insight into that. But even that, at the end of the day, like until you pull on and like have some sort of like direct experience with that thing, it's really tough to tell difficulty from somebody else's performance.
Yeah, something I noticed when we got to the age where we recorded sends and I would watch my sends, like, I'd review, because who doesn't like watching themselves crash, especially when you're injured on the couch. But something that I noticed, and this sounds obvious, but all my hardest sends looked really easy. And what I took from that was that when things are done really correctly, you really commit to that body position. You don't just kind of grab a crimp and kind of thrust from it. It's like, no, I really embrace the drop knee. It's funny because looking easy is almost basic looking. It's like, oh, wow, you did a drop knee? Yeah, but it's like, to what degree? Like, did you really commit to it? And it was something that I took away from that era when I first started seeing videos of myself, is that it's like, oh, it's the basics done all the way, not a half-ass drop knee, not a little bit, not, thrutching, but when you really want to climb your best, you have to completely commit to those body positions, or at least that's what I intuited from that stuff.
That's one of the reasons too, when I work with people, like teaching them about climbing and how to get better, is that it's how you do it, a lot of the time that's more important than actually doing it. And if they do something in the gym or they do their project, but it wasn't done well, it just kind of like scrapped by, I kind of lean on them to like keep the work going on it. And it's one of the main reasons too why I go back and repeat a lot of outdoor climbs that I've done, like a lot of things I'll try and repeat, because I'm always trying to repeat it in a better way, essentially. And I think there's so much to be gained in terms of improvement by doing that. And it's hard to motivate for it sometimes, but I think that if your motivation is rooted in like this idea of mastery, which I've brought up a lot, then it's easier to kind of dig into that and be like, yeah, you watch the video, it's like, I can improve on that performance. I can improve upon how I did this move. Let's make it better. Let's make it more efficient. Let's make it more effective, and figure out how I can basically just make this thing look and feel incredibly easy, even though initially it felt really hard. And those are my favorite moments in climbing. That's kind of what I'm constantly chasing.
100% agree.
Couldn't agree more.
Something I thought was interesting that I wanted to point out is that right after both of these 8-seat flashes by Yannick and Jules, they both went and did a 9B or a 9B plus sport climb. And they're also both kind of, I don't want to say they're known as sport climbers, but they sport climb. And I want to say this is totally non-researched, but I thought Jules Marchand kind of recently started bouldering, like in the last couple of years. Like he really was a sport climber. I don't know. There's always something interesting that it makes me feel like I'm missing something in my climbing when I get really good at one discipline, and that, the best of the best, maybe they reach their high points in the discipline that perhaps they're genetically more suited for, they devote more time into. But that's a hell of a thing to just be like, yeah, I just did the hardest flash in the world. And I did with Jules, he just did a first ascent of what he called a 9B. And like, that's a hell of a couple of months. And those are different. Although before I say that, something I found interesting in that video of him doing that 9B FA, he basically said that the boulder problem was like a kilter board, problem. I just find it interesting that that's now entered our vernacular, because it was like a pinch to like jump to like a good hold. Like it was like a shitty pinch jump. And it's just interesting that that's like part of how we describe routes instead of it being like thuggy or dynamic. It's like, oh, it's a board problem in the middle of this. So
Yeah. This is something I feel like if you've been into climbing training for any length of time, like you ought to know. And I think it's something that the bulk of like, probably not the highest level of sport climbers, but most of like the recreational sport climbers don't quite understand this. Like it's all about your strength and power base. Like if you can boulder hard, you can sport climb hard. And I see a lot of sport climbers, again, not necessarily at the highest end, but like spending like way too much time sport climbing, quite frankly, like doing endurance stuff. And they kind of underappreciate how important like bouldering and just your move for move strength and power is. And like, I think that's really what we're seeing is with these bouldering athletes. And you see it in the World Cup as well, where if you're really strong on boulders, it's a short step to also excel at sport climbing. It's a little more difficult to go the other direction if you've not like put the bouldering time in. So it's on one hand, like, yeah, like it is definitely cool. I'm not saying it's not impressive, but I think it's informative to like even normal people of like, hey, put the work in bouldering, like, and it will serve your other pursuits as well.
Also, from a historical perspective, like route climbing used to be like, we tried to make sport climbing more about like the resistance aspect of it. And so like a lot of the European sport routes were almost chipped down to be more resistant and less bouldery. And so you could climb 14C or 14D back in the day and never boulder harder than like V7 because all the moves were just V7 after V7, which could very well end up being 9A or whatever. I feel like nowadays, because there's less chipping, because we're embracing a little bit more of a natural style, you end up with more bouldery routes. And now some of the hardest sport routes in the world have V15 boulders on them. And so if you are climbing at that upper echelon of sport climbing, you're already having to boulder at that level in order to do that. And so they kind of already go hand in hand. I mean, if you're able to climb a V15 boulder after climbing, 40, 50 feet of like 514 to get into it, even if there's a good rest, your relative power capabilities and capacity are already at a really, really high level. So I don't see it as much surprising nowadays. I think also the way that the Olympics kind of training where the disciplines were combined for so many years, that also breeded kind of this new group of climbers that can do both. It used to not be that way. It was kind of like a little bit more pick your journey in that way. But I think people are a lot more capable in mixed disciplines nowadays than I've ever seen, for sure.
For sure. And I feel like it's kind of like a double-edged sword too, because it kind of goes both ways, because there's like Stefano and even Sung Soo. Sung Soo started off as a sport competition climber, and then he switched to like doing the hardest boulders in the world. So I feel like if you can find yourself at like a high sport level without doing the bouldering, like basics, and that you find yourself there already, somehow you can kind of dip back into it and then just excel extremely fast.
Yeah. So Austin, when's your sport era?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As all of you guys were talking, you were all talking. I'm like, damn, man, I should probably get into sport climbing.
You definitely
got to do
dude.
that
It would help.
project, dude. Someone's got to do it.
Ooh,
Why not you?
The Future Proj, or which one?
To the left of Jaws, Bill Clinton project.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah. Oh, that one. What about the one that's next to the fly? I've always wondered about the one next to the fly.
Yeah. That thing's like probably 2-move V7. I think it's like a V15 move and then a V15 move.
I looked at that thing years ago and I was like, this thing for sure goes. This is such a mega.
It's insane. Yeah.
But yeah, the other Rumney one as well. Yeah.
Just for you guys. I'll harness up sometime soon.
Hell yeah.
Not for us, dude. For you.
All right. Yeah, I guess.
For the love of the game.
I am curious, like what that whole generation looks at sport climbing, where for me, it was like bouldering was kind of this thing that you did for sport climbing. And then a certain amount of people got into it and addicted to bouldering as its end pursuit. And I'm just kind of curious, like if your generation's like, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll tie in sometimes. And like,
I don't know. I started climbing by knowing bouldering. Like that's what maybe it was different, but that's how like Adam and I both started. We walked in the gym and like we bouldered and we knew what bouldering was. We like saw rocks in the woods and we climbed on them and we were like, oh, this is bouldering, you know? And I don't even think we kind of knew how sport climbing worked when we started climbing. And it was kind of like we had to understand climbing more and like learn more lore about it. I just started to learn the European gradings for sport climbing. Like I know what 9A is now.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Climbs V16, like finds out what 9A is. Okay. Well, my one pushback as we close out this segment on sport climbing, didn't see that coming considering we started at bouldering, is that I'm going to push back on Will. Like, you know how it's like, okay, you should get stronger. And that's like your ceiling for sport climbing, right? Cause if you can't do a move, you're stopped. The thing I always say, this is kind of for people who are starting to climb, is that I feel like people should get into sport climbing earlier because when you first start, there's this element of just how many moves have you done? Like just how many moves have you done? And you get exposed to a lot more movement. And it also teaches you efficiency. You know, it's like how easy can you get up the climb? And when you deal with the hardest move that you can do, actually you want to do it in the most efficient way, like the easiest way. And so there's this Venn diagram there that's interesting where doing things easily and doing a lot of moves, even when they're like 5-9 moves, you somehow build this kind of muscle memory. So I just encourage people who are starting out to get on a rope, like get on a freaking rope.
All right, fine. I'll sport
It's
climb.
great to do both. Like they totally play on each other. I mean, it's so good for boulders to like have a season of sport climbing just to understand that way of moving. Like you said, it builds your move library like really quickly because you get to do way more moves and the efficiency is like so much more consequential. You learn pacing, flow, like to rest. Like so many people don't understand like what it even feels like to rest. Like having that experience of like, am I getting more or less pumped? And how quickly is that happening? And then how long should I stay here? And like the mini shakes, like there's so much tactical skill that can be gained from sport climbing as a boulderer, but then also vice versa, you know, like you said, raising that ceiling move for a sport climber and understanding how to just turn it on and crank. Yeah. I think that interdisciplinary, like if folks have not explored that in some way, like you said, highly encourage it. There's just so much to learn.
Quick break while I tell you about today's sponsor. You. That's right, you. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod.
Austin, if you tie in, that's how you're going to climb V18. You've been doing it all wrong.
Shit.
You just did lucid dreaming on accident. You could be so much better. And that's the transition into the next news I've got on here on the docket. And that's Beckett Sin. How do you say his last name? Sin?
Yeah.
Who just did V16 or I don't know. Yeah. I'm just going to put it out there for the clicks. V16 Creature of the Black Lagoon. At the ripe old age of 15 years old, probably didn't even tie in. I mean, you know, he probably just found out about bouldering.
No, the Sins are like his brother. You know Sam?
I've never met him.
Y'all know Sam?
I know Sam.
He's really strong in his own right. And he's the older brother and he's like been coaching Beckett, which is cool. I love a brother duo. Like so good.
But so do they sport climb? Because I was just making that up. That they probably
also.
never sport
No,
climb.
like
okay, good.
They're, like
great.
And that's the thing I think the cool thing with Beckett is, I mean, I think he's turned 16 at this point. Like he did it Creature, like right at the buzzer for being 15. But that kid loves climbing. It's so pure. Like I get a lot of respect for him and Sam, and it's cool to see Beckett excelling and still just like, he's just having fun. He's just loving it. It's a great example of like the most important thing is to just love what you're doing and love doing it and just going out. And he never seems to be in his head about things. And it's cool to see that play out. Total shredder.
You sent that Instagram story to say, good job, dude. Amazing, Beckett. And I clicked on there and I looked at his top 3 pinned Instagram posts, and it was Creature of the Black Lagoon, The Game, and Midnight Express. And he was kind of joking about climbing his age and V grades each time. And I thought to myself, Carlo, I think have you done all of those climbs? Can you give us a little background on some of those?
I mean, I haven't done Midnight Express actually, but I have done The Game and Creature for sure. So, which are first of the grades for me, both of those. So,
dude, you and Beckett.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's cool. Like, he's getting after like hard climbs, especially local ones. Those are both great hard boulders, and I think it's cool, like obviously bouldering your age, but I'm like not as wrapped up in that. It's more just like, he's young, like he's not like an adult yet. And there are more kid friendly boulders out there than those. Like those definitely require like kind of like a lot of physical strength and not just like kind of hanging, especially Creature. Like I find you need to be like really in the biceps and in the back. And it isn't like kid strength type climbing, and so it's impressive in that regard. And he's definitely setting himself up for, especially if he's as psyched as Will says he is, he's definitely setting himself up for a really bright future in climbing, and seems like he's super motivated. So I'm stoked to see it. It's rad. I mean, it's definitely not an easy climb. Like I think it's one of the more repeated V16s Creature is. And I personally didn't feel like it was like exceptionally hard. Like it went down way, way faster for me than even a lot of V15s that I've done. But I've seen a lot of people struggle on it and take a really long time that are really, really strong that I thought were going to do it a lot faster. So yeah, I think it's still the grade. So it's sick. It's rad. I mean, props for sure. So
sorry, this is a little tangent for a second, but you put up like a right exit or something that was supposed to be like 9A or something, or there's some like lore behind that, right?
I didn't finish that. Yeah. So you can start on basically the end. There's like a jug at the culmination of like the hard parts of Creature. You still have to do like a V8 kind of exit. And that's where 2-ton skeleton starts, and it goes the opposite direction out the roof, basically runs parallel to the lip. And then it exits on 2-ton skeleton or Loch Ness Monster is like the same exit there. And it's like Daniel put it up as a V14. I thought it was more like V12, the 2-ton skeleton, but I think it's kind of evened out around the 13 mark. And I was trying to link Creature from the Black Lagoon into that exit. And so very much a link up, but essentially like, yeah, 8C plus into, like 8B, 8B plus, whatever it is. And I fell off the last move that year. I think I did Creature like 16 times that year. And I was falling in 2-ton skeleton. I was doing it like many times a day. And it was like Creature was just on full lock for me. And I was just falling, basically just too tired to do the 2-ton skeleton. My best go was like literally exiting the roof, and I had like a foot pop and I like slipped off. And
dude,
yeah, it was really close. I mean, I think it probably would have been a 9A boulder, but it was kind of a weird one where it's like 9A just because it's like a link up, and I didn't feel like it was like the most pure climb out there. And I still don't think it's the most pure. Like it's definitely like a link up. You get to the edge of this roof. There's an easy exit. And
yeah,
you just
like,
decide to go for a much, much harder version. But like there was the summer during COVID, and like I had kind of unlimited time to just work on it. And it was actually, I was training for Empath, which was a project at the time. And I felt like this roof actually was really good training to like do more moves in it. And I felt like I was just getting stronger every day climbing in there on Creature and doing this link. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to dig in and just try and do this thing, because I feel like I'm getting in really good shape. And it was perfect. Like when I came back to California to do Empath, I did Empath in like 2 or 3 days, like 6 tries or something like that. And I felt like it was like the start of my best season, was like climbing in that roof for like a whole summer and doing Creature over and over and over again. But yeah, I mean, that link up's still out there. I think it's hard.
Gotta go back.
Yeah, I gotta go back. I did go back the year later, and I was not quite in as good a shape, and I didn't quite have as much time. And actually the conditions were a lot worse for some reason that summer, like that I did it, it was colder there more frequently. And the year after, half the days I would go up there, it was like 80 degrees and like still. And the cave gets really manky when it's like that because there's like a lot of moisture in there. And so it would be like hot and humid in the cave. And there was no like just moving air or anything. So like half the days I went up there, it was just shit. And, if you're not even able to climb on it half the days, it's really hard to get into like a rhythm on it. And then I went back last year and tried it one day and it was kind of similar. Like I wasn't feeling as good. And then the conditions were still like really hot. And I was like, I think the only way to do this would be like late season before it snows. And obviously like I'm looking at trying other things than like a link up in the creature roof again. So it's kind of like an unfortunate one where like, I feel like the ship kind of sailed. I would love if I had time to be able to go back in like September and like try and do that link up at somewhere down the line. I think I could do it, but yeah, there's other cooler shit I think out there. So, but it's a good hard one.
If Beckett wants to try to keep that trend alive, it's just in his backyard there. And we had a little bit of a debate about talking about young phenom sends. I mean, I don't know what we qualify as young, but in my world now, 15 or 16 seems very young. And, kind of the debate was, there was twofold. There was this idea of sometimes climbs are very different for the youth. And the one that comes to mind for me is Ashima doing Power of Silence, but she like didn't use any of the same holds. And so just kind of, you pointing out there, Carlo, like, this is a physical problem. Doing it the way that everyone else does it should be probably a precursor. But then the other thing that I thought was interesting was this idea of maybe they burn out, maybe they flame out, maybe that 12-year-old that, climbs 9A in, that's 14D, Austin.
Thank you.
Just kind of
I knew that one.
I actually was one of those people. I climbed 12D when I was 12, so don't want to brag too much there. But then I quit for like 7 years. But the reason why I want to bring this up, because I was talking to the man himself, Chris Sharma. The pod with him will be out by the time this airs. And we talked a lot about realization or biography. I kept saying realization, and I feel like he was like, dude, don't you dare say this. Like, I'm going to get into trouble here. Anyways, biography, which was a big moment in his career because he had to put a lot of work into it. And it's something I always think about when I see young people crushing. It's like, what happens when you can't just do the problem? Like, where's that grit? Because physical ability is like, and of course, and we see it pretty often. It's like, oh, look at this person up and coming with strong fingers or whatever the case may be. Like, of course you have to be physically strong, but I think we all know that it takes more than just that to say, do the world's first 15A, or the world's first 15B. And I just think it's something that I wanted to point out, where I also don't always love highlighting youngsters because it's not predetermined that they're going to be great. There's a lot of growth that needs to go through for them to really crack the barrier on what's possible.
Yeah, I think it's important to celebrate the younger kids' achievements for what they are now and rather than like what we think they could potentially be in the future, Like, I think that's the separation, is that I think there's so much that goes into it where you're like, oh my God, they're going to do and I'm probably guilty of this too. Like, there's so much to be said about like, oh yeah, they're going to do so much more. And it's like, that's not a sure thing, let's just celebrate the fact that they've done quite a bit at this point in their life. And they may end up taking a different direction and going somewhere totally different with what they want to do in the future. And that's totally valid and reasonable as well. Like it doesn't have to be like a negative thing, like there are kids that just decided they're like, oh yeah, I just wasn't into it anymore and decided to do something else. And the other shit is actually pretty cool too. And it doesn't really matter. It's not like a negative that like they stopped climbing. And I think that's the important thing for kids to realize, is that even if they decide not to pursue it in the long run, that's not burning out. That's not a negative thing. That's just like, oh yeah, you had your time, like it is what it is. It's fine. It doesn't have to be like this long-term trajectory. So
yeah, like I used to play soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's just like, yeah, just live your life. Like, you do whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with doing something else.
I think that was really well said, Carlo. I like that. Celebrating the current achievement, not somehow trying to project in the future. And because it almost says like, if you don't do this, it's somehow like a negative versus like,
I feel like that could totally just add a lot of unnecessary pressure for no reason at all. And then that could lead to burning out for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think that's where sponsorships and stuff get complicated, because I think that when you sign up for agreements with companies and you sign up to get paid and you're become a professional, I think that there is now some expectation that you're going to keep at it and keep trying to progress and keep trying to improve and keep trying to like do more. And I think that that's warranted. Like if you're pulling money from the sport, you're getting paid to do something. I think that that is the goal. But I think that, you know, if you're not getting those things, then it's like, there's just no problem with kind of participating at whatever level you want to now or in the future. But I do think that that's the line. And I think that that's where companies, I think, need to be really careful about who they decide to start giving support to for kids and whatnot. And kind of how they give support in that way, because that's where it starts to really muddy the waters of like motivation, because it's like, am I really motivated now by like what I really want to do? Or am I motivated because now I feel like I have some sort of expectations to do this because I'm getting paid this or that from a company, you know? And I've seen it go bad a lot in that way.
I don't know if that's on the company's shoulders though. I feel like that's on the kids' shoulders or their parents, you know, because the company,
it's definitely not on the kids. It's, you know, anyone under 18. I don't think it's on the kids ever, but I do think it's on the parents. I think that though
that could be worse.
Yeah. But a lot of times the parents are the ones pushing the hardest for those types of things. And we see that a lot, but I do think there is some responsibility on the companies to kind of know what they're getting into with a kid and making sure that they're creating a situation that, you know, is as healthy as possible, and that they do feel like the motivations from this kid are pure, and that they don't feel like there's too many expectations about what their long-term progress is, you know? That's why I think that like sponsorships before these kids are 18 and they've really become an adult and are starting to really figure out what they want out of it, I think are tricky. And it's like, I'd not necessarily like approve of it, you know? Like I just don't think it's a lot of times not a good thing for everyone involved. So
I'm with you on that.
I feel like it's not like a terrible idea to be sponsored before you're 18, because I think sometimes people know what they want and they like try to get it, and like maybe that's like their goal. But I guess like you said, there just has to be better things put into place for it, when maybe there should be some sort of different kind of way to do it for a youth athlete versus an older athlete. I mean, I know when I was a youth athlete, I was like, oh, I want to be a sponsored climber. That'd be so sick. But I had no clue what it meant. So maybe when you're a youth athlete and you're sponsored, it's more teaching you about what being a sponsored athlete means and showing you what it could be when you like grow up.
So what's the negative though in just waiting until you're like old enough to feel like, you know, you're at an age to make those decisions, you know,
That's
and
fair.
be able to like what's the rush is my point. You know,
you're
still like taking care of your parents. You're still being taken care of generally by your parents. Like, you know, like I agree. Sometimes it can be helpful. Like obviously if you're not coming from a family that has the resources to go on climbing trips, that sometimes, you know, companies can help out with that. But that being said, like I've seen that go bad where like now these kids go on a trip and they have expectations about that they're supposed to perform and do something. And it's like, and you know, oh yeah, this company paid for you to come here to be able to do this and that. And it's like, is this really like a healthy environment, or is it better just to like stay home, train in your local gym if that's what you can afford to do right now, and then go to those areas when you like, there's no rush, you know?
I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree
Really?
with that one. Like think about if you're LeBron James and they're like, LeBron, why don't you just go to college? Like, why are you going straight to the NBA? It's going to be there when you're done. And it's like, or like Chris Sharma was on a freaking rocket ship. He wins adult nationals at 14, and then he does fucking everything out there that could be climbed. And it's like, Chris, just chill. Like, we're not going to give you the money or the support to go to these things. Let's just wait for your career later. And it's like, okay, you want me to like go learn algebra? Like, I'm like,
hey, I didn't bring up the school thing in here, man. I didn't say kids just got to stay in school and not go climbing.
Out of school, Go. That's what Alex Honnold told me to do, dude. He was like, I was like, Alex, we started out at the same time. We started in the same place. Where did I go wrong? He was like, dude, you went to school and got a job. You blew it. You could have been great.
It's over.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
no, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And like, you know, I'm not putting this out there as like the only way to go. And obviously the industry is going to do what it wants to do. I just think it's something that has to be paid attention to some degree, because
That's fair.
It has created a lot of kind of messed up power dynamics for kids, you know, that hasn't allowed them to perform, I feel like, at their highest level. Some kids it has. Like some kids, they had that drive, they had that motivation. It was totally independent of like that money, and that support really just helped them flourish, and it did well. It's just that I've never seen anybody be able to like perfectly predict what the result's going to be. Like it seems to be a little bit of like a scatter shot in that sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it goes well, you know?
But that would be the argument to still do it, is like, could you imagine if you talk to 10 kids and we know 9 of them? I mean, dude, if we wanted to right now, I'm sure all of us could, like, we all know those kids who didn't make it. But if you ask them, if you talk to 11-year-old Josh, like, oh dude, I'm in it. I'm a lifer. I'm going to be the best. Like, you should just give me that free chalk. That's all I need. And like, they're all going to feel like that. And it's only like in hindsight that you go, oh, like this guy or this girl shouldn't have gotten that. And so I don't know. It's like, I hear what you're saying, and maybe we should put some guardrails, but like, I think it's tough.
I'm not trying to keep free chalk from kids, dude.
Carlo wants all the chalk. You heard it here
They
first.
can have all the free chalk they want, you know? That's not, I think I'm talking about a little bit more like, you know, like high end, like deals in that way. And that being said, like I have my opinion on it just because of what I've seen. And I've seen a lot of situations like not end up in a great place where kids kind of like hated it, you know, and it sucks to watch that. And it makes you want something to change to some degree, but the machine
like a true
keeps
dad.
Yeah, the machine keeps moving, you know, the machine keeps rolling on, like the marketing machine, the youth push, you know, all of that stuff keeps rolling. And I'm certainly not me, you know, talking about it here is going to change that to some degree. I hope that at some point we can kind of like, and I think it has happened. I do know athlete managers at brands nowadays, and I've had conversations with them about that topic. And I do think that they think about it more than ever, you know, and they at least it's like a part of like the general consciousness of like how to deal with these situations and whatnot. So may not have led to any sort of significant changes, but yeah, it's there. So
I think it's one of those things where it's got to be clear communication, clear expectations, ongoing, and understanding from the company's side, like, especially with younger athletes, like you're taking a risk, and that's your risk to take. You can't put that on a kid, and it's tough. And frankly, like sponsorships in general, it would benefit everybody for the folks who are making those decisions about who to sponsor and how to really understand what it is that they're doing, and not just do it the way it's always been done or whatnot. Like it affects people's lives. It can be really good or really bad for a company. I don't think we've arrived at the best way to do athlete company relationships in climbing. The more we can kind of continue as an industry to develop how those relationships work, what a professional climber is, how are they compensated, how does that benefit the company, like what are the terms and the duration of these, like there's just so much there that, you know, it's not the 90s anymore, it's not the early 2000s. Like things are changing, and as they change, the industry in the way that and what it means to be a professional climber needs to adapt, and it will. It's already happening, and there are positives and negatives to it. But it's definitely just not the way that it used to be.
Yeah, on that topic too, Josh mentioned earlier too, like using LeBron as like an example. You know, I think when you bring in these high level athletes from other sports into the conversation, it's a little different, I would say, because NBA money is life-changing amounts of money, whereas
Good point.
there's almost no life-changing amounts of money, or very, very little contracts in climbing that would be life-changing in any way. Like most of them, to be honest, are probably less than a job that you could get pretty much anywhere else, which is unfortunate. And that's got to change. But these kids that are coming up in the NBA, NFL, whatever, predominantly minority athletes a lot of the time are growing up in abject poverty. Just one glimpse of money from one of those contracts is life-changing for them, for their community, their family, for everybody. And so I can see why they push hard in those situations where it's like, this is going to change not only your life, but everyone around you and generations of your family from now on. And I feel like that's a risk worth taking, even at a young age. Like, yeah, you still got to be careful that you're not going to fuck up your kid in that scenario. But it's like, that feels a little bit more like, some of the positives are going to outweigh the negatives in that way. Whereas in climbing, it's like, even in the best scenario, like, you're still going to end up probably making less money than a full-time software developer, maybe even half that income. And so I think that will change. Hopefully that will change in climbing. Hopefully we do get to the point where like climbing contracts are a life-changing amount of money. And then these youth achievements and these youth pipelines can actually feel like they're going to change people's lives in a way. And I think that will change the conversation. It will change how I speak about it. But right now I feel like it's like the risk worth reward is just not the same. It's you're talking about ruining a kid's childhood or ruining this activity that could be really beneficial for them for their whole life in terms of mental health, in terms of just community activity level and whatnot. And you may ruin that without really any sort of like, for $5,000 or for some, for some packs of chalk, or like a couple pairs of free shoes. And so that's kind of the balance you have to play with there. And I think that's my argument, at least in regards to the way that we speak about the different sports and stuff.
Dude, because I'm really glad you brought that up. I feel very similarly about it. And I think it's in a lot of ways can be disingenuous the way that we pitch climbing to kids. We're like, I've had multiple conversations with, folks kind of between like the 15 to 20 year age range where you're kind of like figure out like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, look, man, I wish I could tell you that like there's an economic future for you in climbing, but like there isn't, and there's not going to be in time for you to benefit from it. So like, maybe think about going to school or like investing in your career in a way that will facilitate you being able to go climb on your own terms and essentially live that life that you want to lead, but like kind of under your own power, because oftentimes that's actually going to be better than trying to go the industry route, because there's just not that much room to take the industry route. When that changes, when like climbing becomes something more like the NBA or the NFL or something where there's like upward economic mobility available to you through the pursuit of this recreational activity. Like outside of that, it's like a perfect example is a kid who I had on team at one point who she was incredible at running track. And it was always kind of this thing of like, oh, like we have this track meet, but then we also have a climbing competition or whatever. And I was like, run freaking track. Like you can go to college if you're good enough at track. And she got like a huge scholarship to go to school and run track. And I'm like, do it. You can come back and climb whenever the hell you want. But like, if this is gonna like pay for your education, like don't apologize to me for missing climbing practice, miss climbing practice.
What do you think, Austin? You're full-time setter, full-time professional, full-time in the industry, and you're young. Are you just all in? You guys are like, I'll show you. I'll make the 7-figure contract.
I mean,
it's coming, dude.
Yeah, that's the dream. But I mean, they're not half wrong. But that's the dream. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I started setting so I could have extra money to go on climbing trips. So there is no life-changing money in climbing. And like Will said, there probably won't be for a while. Hopefully there is at some point. And hopefully there's like scholarships for climbing. That would be amazing. I mean, I feel like Boulder or something, it would make sense for Boulder. They have a good climbing team. They could do a scholarship for climbing and things like that. But the career pipeline in climbing, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, as a 20 plus year professional climber, like I never made enough from purely climbing contracts to pay my bills and still don't. I always had to supplement with other things. It's like why we made films for years and sold films, because that was a way to make money. That's why people do YouTube videos now with YouTube revenue. Like I sold films on Vimeo, and that's how we paid for trips. And then, usually my whole thing was like, I would get a brand to pay for the trip and supply them with some photos or some videos about products and stuff like that. And then during the trip, I would film all of the climbing, and then we'd make like a climbing film, such as like I made Heritage, I made Chasing Winter, made On the Circuit. The Swiss account ended up being a free release, but we got paid from some sponsors for that stuff. But that's kind of how we funded our lives in a lot of ways to keep going. But for me, it was always like, the only way that I can keep making enough money is to just constantly be on the road. And so it was like kind of this double-edged sword, which was like, I want to be out there climbing. I want to be able to do stuff. But the only way to keep kind of the cycle going for me was to just keep going, go, next trip to next trip to next trip to next trip. And it does get exhausting after a while. Like, I was like 4 or 5 years deep without having like a home or anywhere, and you're just constantly cycling into the next trip. And it sounds like a dream initially, and it kind of is like, but I gotta say, like, after 4 or 5 years of that, you definitely are kind of like, you definitely start to approach every new area like, holy shit, like you don't see it for the same, like, oh my God, I'm in this incredible area anymore. You're just like, oh fuck, here we go again. Like, here we are, like it starts to feel different. And I'm not trying to say that, like, I know there's a lot of people that would dream for that, and I definitely was really lucky to have that experience and whatnot, and to be able to see it for the other side of it. But everything has an upside and a downside, and I think that's important to realize in life, is that even the greatest things have a negative end to them as well, to some degree, depending on how long you're doing it or whatever you're doing it for. So I think a balance is always what you should be trying to strike. But for me, it wasn't possible. Like, I had to just kind of keep rolling with it for a long time. So
the other thing that comes to mind for me that's really important about this is that the way sponsorships work, and that the incentive alignment or disalignment or misalignment can be somehow in some ways like damaging for our sport or the athlete. And the reason why, we're talking about kids and how that can lead to problems, but I just think about normal athletes. It made me think of, I talked to the Wheeler brothers recently, Noah Wheeler and Ben Wheeler, and both amazing climbers. Noah's kind of starting to, he's got an agent. He's doing V17s. He's, go Noah, really happy for him. On the podcast, we talked about how they have now started a Patreon. And one of the reasons behind that was that they want to do things like hypnotize minds, which we talked about. And he's, his thing was that, honestly, it's not V17. I don't know. Actually, it might be V17 actually. Anyways, but the point is that he has goals for himself as a climber, things he wants to do that maybe his sponsors don't care. It's like, yeah, great, you did hypnotize minds, but what about V18? Or like, well, why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z that we know would get the clicks, where maybe all us here would be psyched to see him do that thing, because we know the history, we know the lore, we've read Rustum's blog post, but just sometimes those alignment issues will lead towards people doing things in the sport that maybe actually isn't great for the sport. That there's something interesting there, where I loved seeing him think about it, or him and Ben think about trying to get support for people who want to see their journey in an authentic way, versus like, this is what would look good for my sponsor.
Well, I think that's what's so cool about kind of the modern era of professional sports in general. And I think like particularly the sort of like B tier professional sports, like not talking about the NFL and the NBA and whatnot, but like looking at, skating, surfing, mountain biking, like those kinds of activities. The big shift that we have seen, I think, is largely due to the death of print media and like the sort of democratization of like really nice cameras, really nice video, the ability to edit and then distribute like without the need for a magazine or a production company or a Reel Rock tour or anything like that. So like, I think the benefit to that is athletes are in more control than they've ever been. And there are more opportunities for athletes like, and folks like the Wheelers to be like, you know what? We're just going to do it ourselves in a way that's authentic to us, and we're going to make it work. And we don't need you. And I think that's sick. Like athletes didn't used to be able to do that. You kind of were at the beck and call of like, well, what's going on with the magazines or these companies or production studios? Like you weren't as much in the driver's seat. There are negatives to that. because it used to be harder to see these parts of the sport. Like you had to purchase the magazine or purchase the ticket or buy the DVD or something. So there was more direct attribution of this like cash flow from what the athletes were producing. And so I think it was an easier line to draw and then make up contracts and pay folks. So there's definitely negatives to it, but I think I'm actually pretty optimistic about the directions that things are going. I know it's a really tough time to be a photographer right now because like I can take a passable photo with my iPhone where like that just never used to be the case. Like I remember back would have been 10, 15 years ago, maybe when Ethan Pringle, he made a Joe's video. And like the thing about the video is the whole video was shot on an iPhone. He just shot the whole thing on an iPhone and it was sick. We'll have to find the link to it or whatever. But that was one of the first times I saw it was like, oh shit. You could just do this with an iPhone. Like you don't need a red camera. You don't need to go out and spend a bunch of money. Like you can tell a compelling story, like record it and distribute it in a way that never used to be possible. And I think that that's really cool. I think it's been the single biggest industry shakeup that has happened in the last decades. And it's happening across a lot of sports. It's not just climbing.
Especially this generation loves like vintage, shitty looking like video quality.
Yeah.
Like it's like, that's like the style. So
You
it's like you don't even have to
filter.
try hard. It's like you actually want to kind of fucking bounce around a bunch and not have it be steady. And you want a bunch of like water spots and kind of shit on the lens, you know, and like
Some
it's
lens
like
flare.
that's what's cool, you know? Yeah. Some fucked
The
up
cameras
lens
are
flares
too
and,
good now.
I do have I do have one. I will.
We have one too. We have a mom cam that we film stuff
yeah.
on because like the iPhone's too good. Like,
yeah, it's too crisp.
Tough life.
Doesn't even look real. But I think it's cool because it kind of like it separates itself from like possibly AI content now, which is looking too like crisp and real and like kind of weird, you know? So
You guys I'm gonna show you my sends. You guys are gonna be like, oh, it's probably AI. You didn't
that's
climb
AI.
it, dude.
Yeah.
it looks way too good, Josh.
Yeah, too easy.
Okay, guys, we do have more on the docket, but we've gone for a while. Do you guys want to touch on either Will Bosi? Do you want to talk about adding depth versus asterisks? I feel like we might want to save that for the next time.
Yeah, I
don't
feel like
know.
that's a long
What
one.
do you guys
Those are
think?
pretty deep topics.
Let's definitely talk about Bosi because we were talking some
Yeah, I'm
smack.
down for Will.
So we gotta,
Bosi, it's Bosi.
yeah, I'm Will.
Bosi.
He's
Yeah,
Bosi.
sorry.
Okay.
How dare I?
First
But-
names. Yeah.
I ran into him briefly in Ticino. He's a great dude. Obviously an incredible climber. We were giving him shit for climbing a gross limestone drop off. And it is a gross limestone drop off. It is really hard. He's still rad.
Not taking that back.
Yeah, not taking that back. I said what I said.
I'll still go.
But yeah, I mean, obviously he's a rad dude. He's one of the best boulders we've ever seen. Like, we're just giving him some shit. Okay. Like, don't take it too seriously. But he just recently put out a video of him on this really cool looking boulder in Scotland. And yeah, it just looked sick. Okay, this is sound ridiculous. I love the way that the grass grows in that part of the world.
Yeah. That's the dream.
Like, yeah, so I went to Ireland for the first time, like Northern Ireland, and just the green, like the grass, and like you can see it in that video, like the tall grass that is like bent over. Like, it's just the only thing that I wish he had done was just like turn around, you know, show us where the boulder is at. 'Cause Scotland is so beautiful. And like, it just, and that rock looked really good. The project looked sick. I mean, maybe it's in a gutter on the side of the road and that's why he didn't turn around, but like the climb looked sick.
I think it further proves our point, you know, that there are still megas out there and that you don't need to be on the shitty limestone cliff because there's some fucking megas that aren't that far, you know?
Yeah.
I think it more reiterates our point. Put
Hell
the attention
yeah.
on the
Like
good line.
Oh gosh.
Down, just doubling down. Austin was like, I'll still fly there.
No, I mean, I hate talking shit about, I don't want to talk shit about that types of stuff because I think it's just sick. People are getting after it, climbing really hard. And obviously Bosi's, he's one of the best out there right now and just continues to kind of plug away. And he's working on stuff that's new too. He's not just going after and repeating a bunch of lines. He's kind of doing both, which I think is amazing. And, he's an incredible climber. And it's like all you can do almost is like talk shit in some ways. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever lose my like shit talking on roadside limestone choss. Like I think I'll always not be that psyched
Dude,
on that.
this was supposed to be like erasing the bad stuff from last time, and then just making it worse, Carlo. Yeah.
Double down.
We're the no tape backs crew here. Yeah, we're not taking anything back today. But Austin wants to travel over there for it. Austin's slaving away in a New York City gym for weeks on end to afford his trip to
Burden of
some
nightmares,
shitty roadside limestone.
Exactly. Exactly.
And hey, who's to blame him, you know? I'm going to talk shit about it if you end up going, but
I don't know what sport climbing is. I'm into limestone.
but you can do whatever you want, man.
Yeah. Well, the two things that jumped out at me on that video was I love that he's just documenting the process. Like we often say about this with like pro climbers is like, it just looks like a bunch of highlights of sends, but you don't hear about what they don't send. Or like you'll see people purposefully not go to a climb or not tell anyone they're going to a climb because it would reflect poorly on them, or that's how they feel if they fail at that climb. And so kind of goes back to what we're talking about where he's telling his own story. And so I love that. I also just want to point out that I've never seen a dude laugh every time he falls. Like he's like, oh, I fell. That was amazing and hilarious. Did you see that? And I'm just like, damn, this guy's having a lot of fun. And so just wanted to shout that out.
I have a point to make about documenting the effort because I think there's like a distinction here. When he originally started, like I think when he was doing it with like Sleepwalker and Burden, I think he started documenting like every day. And initially I was kind of like, this is crazy. Like this is too much. Like I can't watch this. And I think I've came around to it to where I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting to follow along with. But the difference that I have to point out is that he stands out in that he finishes them. He goes through the whole process and actually does it. And I don't like how people they'll start the process on something like that and they'll have like every days of efforts and then they'll like just won't ever go back, or they just kind of like bail on it. And it's just like, it ends up just being a ton of video of them trying a bunch of things that they never actually get to do. And for some reason, it just feels like less valuable or less worthwhile when there's like no follow through on all of that. Cause it's like at some point, if all of us just went out and put a video out of every effort on everything and then just didn't follow through with doing it, like it would just be a lot of like really shitty.
It's a little clickbaity too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and also I think people too, like you could be like a V10 climber and be like trying Alphane today or traveled to Finland, try Burden of Dreams. And you would probably get a ton of views because people are like, oh my God, this guy's trying Burden of Dreams, even though you have like no place in being there. And you could just film videos of you falling on every move over and over and over again. And I think it's weird to kind of like try and gain some level of notoriety by just trying something that has some notoriety, you know, like there's some weird thing there where, and I'm old school with it. Like I don't really talk about anything that I'm trying. And I even have a hard time talking about things that I have tried that I haven't finished yet, because like I'm really opposed to that style. And that's old school. Like I agree. I don't think that is in line with like the new kind of way of thinking about it. And I think I'll have a hard time kind of shaking that idea of like how to go about things, but I hate talking about stuff until I've done it. Basically, I'm just kind of like, let me have my process and then we can talk about the whole process once it's done.
Yeah, I got to back you up on that. I think it's whack. I think it takes up space and air in the room. Climbing is about like, you do got to do it. Anyone can try anything, but like you got to do it. And the trying, in my opinion, is, I don't want to say it's only compelling when the achievement is actually realized, but in a lot of ways it is. Because I have seen more and more of a trend, as you're saying, of folks who are like getting a lot of attention for like just trying things. And it's not that trying things is bad. Like obviously we all try things and we, like you said, Carlo, like sometimes you put a 30 days into something and you don't do anything. And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't get anything out of it. It's like, no, you got a ton out of it. You might not have got any content out of it, but like that's not what it's about. But I do at the same time, like I do really like seeing Bosi's video of that. And like, I think what makes it especially compelling with him in particular is like he's going to do it. You know, he's capable. He follows through, like, and you do kind of get that longitudinal sort of story arc alongside these things. Like, but it's because he is one of the best boulders in the world, trying some of the hardest boulders and projects in the world. And like, that's compelling. But yeah, like I don't want to see a V8 climber, like their journey to Sleepwalker that starts when they climb V10. It's like, maybe I'm going to get roasted for that, but like, I don't think that that's rad.
I don't disagree actually that much with what you guys are saying. Don't worry.
Okay, I'll disagree because the one thing I really agree with, and I've pulled myself away from this, I am usually pretty open and transparent, but I really don't like now when people ask me what I'm working on or what I'm trying. And the reason is because there's two reasons. I think it somehow like steals some of the personal joy and that journey, like the internal journey. And then I often feel like people are just trying to associate themselves with something, even though they have no right to. Like you guys, I'm going to go try Burden of Dreams. It's like, oh wow, Josh is trying Burden of Dreams. Yeah. And it's like somehow you're creating that association that shouldn't exist, kind of to go back to what both of you guys were saying. My counterpoint that I have is an experience I had during COVID, and it's when I got psyched on board climbing. And I'm a really, really social person. I like climbing with my friends, and I like getting pushed by my friends. Like if I see Will do a move, I'm going to do that fucking move, or I'm going to try my damnedest. And it pushes me to my best. And I have a hard time being alone and doing that. And during the board climbing era of mine during COVID, because I did not get to hang out in Rocky Mountain National Park like Carlo, I was just in a barn. And I started videoing myself, and I wanted to do it was the benchmarks on the Mood Board 2019. It like was somehow this thing that made me try extra hard. Like I knew I was documenting this. I had like 50 of my random idiot friends following me on Instagram, but somehow it like, I don't know, it like made my journey more real on my own. It held me accountable. That's the word I'm looking for. Held me accountable to like my external self. And so does that mean it was clogging the feed and taking air away from Carlo doing Creature of the Black Lagoon? Like, I don't care. It was for me. Like it was an accountability for me.
Yeah. It's almost like a stolen valor kind of thing, where like you get the association with this like hard achievement without ever actually having to do it. And I feel the same way. Like, I hate when people ask me what I'm working on. I'm like, I don't know, like just trying to be better, like just to climb boulders. Like there's all sorts of boulders I'm trying to do, but like it only ever, I don't know, quote unquote matters like when you do it, and just be patient. Like it's no big deal. Like no one's sweating it. Like you care about your climbing. No one else cares. To kind of push back on myself, and to also, I want to shout out your Jesse Firestone Testpiece episode, because it was
Thanks,
really good.
Go Jesse.
That guy knows his stuff. And, you know, one of the things that I think is interesting and what I like about the kind of process stuff with Bosi is like, you watch him like not do moves and like not even be close, but he falls, he chuckles, and he tries again. And I think that is like great behavior to model. Like that's because that is how it's done, you know? Like if you just walk up and do something, it's just not even hard. And so like, I think something that Jesse talked about was like how the best climbers seem to have this ability to sort of be in this world of unknown, or like suspend their disbelief longer than like other climbers. That enables them to continue trying and iterating and like trying to figure the thing out without quitting. And I think watching somebody like Bosi do that is impactful in a really positive way. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, that might be why it's not that interesting to me, is because like sometimes I watch that shit and I'm just like, yeah, duh. This is just the way that it is. Like, and I guess I just assume everyone knows
they
that.
Don't.
You know,
they don't.
It's like, yeah, it's just, yeah. No, I know. I hear that now. And I think Will's point was great, because I have a hard time seeing it that way sometimes, where people just expect that it's like this quick come together, but it's like, yeah, most of the time it's literally just pulling on, falling off, pulling on, falling off, pulling on, falling off, over and over and over and over again. And hopefully pulling some minute bit of information out of one of those efforts that helps in subsequent efforts. And you just try and build on that. And you end the day feeling like you didn't do anything, like other than just pull on the ground. I tell people, like, even when I was working on the dark side, I was like, it's basically just a hangboarding session on real rock, because I literally just pull off the ground try and hang there for as long as I can, maybe to try and do a move and then I fall off. And then I just repeat that over and over and over again. And it's like, I'm just hangboarding just on real rock holds. And I think that's kind of like what it is outdoor bouldering. If you're projecting something kind of at or beyond your limit, is like you pull off the ground in a position, you try and hold it for as long as you can. You try and figure out a way to like unload one arm to make a move, you know, and like with various foot positions or arm positions. And then you just kind of build on that. And yeah, I agree. It probably is something cool to be able to watch for some people. I just think that it has to progress to something, you know, like final, I think, because if it's just that over and over again, you're just like, oh, I guess I just keep falling over and over again and somehow it will work out. Whereas there's really a lot more nuance to it than just that. Cause I think that's what it can look like, you know. Projecting boulders is like the most boring process ever, I find.
Oh, miserable.
And I know like Mary, my wife, has been there on many, many occasions of me working on shit. And I'm like, and I think back to it and I'm like, I don't know how she was like patient enough to just sit there and watch for hours and hours of me literally doing nothing.
Because you're so big and strong, Carlo.
Yeah, right. I don't think you know my wife. She was probably just more like, what the fuck are we doing out here? What are you doing, you crazy person? Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's why we're married, you know?
Yeah. You got to trap them.
Yeah, find somebody that's willing to watch you project a boulder for hours and hours. Now you know you found the one.
I second that big time.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think it's pretty cool that Will is like doing these hard projects and like documenting all the stuff kind of around his like home area, quote unquote home. I don't know how far it is from, but he's not like traveling far to do it. And it's pretty cool that it's all like, he's really psyched on doing hard new stuff in where he grew up and like what he's used to. I think that's something that more people could like maybe not learn from or something, but could be like inspired by or something. I think that's pretty cool.
You and the gunks, man.
Yeah, that's you and the gunks.
So you shouldn't go to Squamish this coming week, Austin. You should just stay home in the gunks and just.
If I have to. I mean, if I have to, I guess.
All right, guys. That was a good one. That was fun. I just want to give people a little behind the scenes and let everyone know that you guys said that I could not sponsor these podcasts. There was no sponsorships allowed. We didn't want a conflict of interest. So the way around that to make sure it's not misaligned is that I've got Patreon, you guys, and you can say no to this right now, but you're just going to break hearts. But I have some Patreon Q&A for you. If you want to hear that Q&A and other extra behind the scenes content from this episode and others, head over to patreon.com/testpiece to sign up now. Patrons also get their episodes early and ad-free. There's hours and hours of bonus content there to help you on your own path of going from good to great. Still not sure? There's a free 7-day trial for you to check it out. And to help the show grow, please share this episode with someone who would love it. Okay, see you next week.